This is chapter 41. I am such a jerk. That's the title of the chapter. Okay, so now, how do I explain Jenny and Peter? So let's start here. I was teaching at Rossing, and they had volunteer workers. Two pretty young 18-year-old British volunteer teachers were stationed at Rossing for a few of the summer months. I was brand new at Rossing, and I knew no one socially. Peter and I had become friends with them while socializing at a local bars on weekends. A very platonic relationship developed. A well-traveled custom in well-traveled people that are sexually flirtatious always screws things up in a group. And unless we had decided ahead of time who's who. In other words, you don't screw around with your friends and pretend it's something else. You have to be cool. It's required when camping to have an open platonic relationship with all parties. Frankly, there are too many sexual predators around in the local population alone, so in a way, he was sort of a big cousin or big brother protector for the girls, and I had absolutely no interest whatsoever. Okay? But that's how it actually happened with Peter and me. Peter invited the girls to go camping in the desert. It was a last-minute, tag-along idea for me to go. I was recruited by Ursula, my boss, to look after the girls on a planned overnight camping trip in the desert called the Moonscape by the locals, and we were there to watch the full moon. It was my first camping trip in Africa. I had my steel-legged, tight military bed that my son gave me before I left to keep me off the ground and away from the scorpions and the snakes, since he used one exactly like it in 1983 when he was in Beirut with the United States Marines. I figured I'd give it a shot, so I insisted on bringing it. Peter, he hawed and hawed and laughed and told everyone in Swakopmund afterwards that I slept off the ground like an American tourist sissy. He never let me forget it. Our chess games together were magnificent. We were evenly matched, and it turned out that the girls were able to take care of themselves. They were scared of their own shadows. Every noise they heard was a fierce lion lurking in the bush. Actually, they were geckos. They were loud at night, and they kind of like bark, like, "Urgh!" Well, that's not too scary, is it? But no predator wildlife was near us, and they couldn't live in this prehistoric desert wonderland anyway. But there was no point in telling the girls that. They wouldn't believe it. So while Peter and I played chess all night by the full moon, we watched the Southern Cross traverse across the brilliant moonscape in the African sky. And we talked, and we talked, and we talked, and we talked. It was truly majestic. We spent the next 30 days camping out together without the girls and bonding as best friends. I still love the guy, and I still hear from him occasionally. And he likes me too. He writes sometimes. He never said much about Jenny, but after the 30 days, he invited me to her house in town one night to play chess and watch TV. He told me she was on a holiday in England visiting her mother. I never asked about her. I just knew by looking around the well-appointed home who was the boss in the house, and that was enough information for me. One afternoon, a bunch of us expat tour guides and locals were telling war stories between beers about our bush adventures. We were sitting around a big table in the bistro. Hein was regaling them with a story about me getting chased by a lion. I was getting out of our tent one morning out in Himbaland, and I put my hand on a tree for balance. I looked up, and suddenly there was a lion coming straight at me. Tail up, teeth bared, running straight at me and about to eat me. I shit myself. I was frozen in place and wet from the waist down. The lion's feet landed right in front of mine, and he instantly veered off and ran away. Now that's an absolutely true story, and that's what happened. But, to embarrass me, Hein always tells it to the locals, like he tells the story around the campfires at night. He said, up in Himbaland, the campfires at night have all the locals and the children all tell the story while everyone's holding their noses. They tell it like this, that I shit myself first and the lion ran away because Americans smell so bad. Then they would all hold their noses and howl with laughter. When I protested for him to tell it right, Heino always insisted back, laughing, when you actually do something brave in Africa, you'll have your own stories to tell. Suddenly, Peter burst out with, Tommy, there's Jenny, pointing. And I saw a beautiful blonde creature getting out of her Mercedes. I looked down, as required of experienced campers and polite bushmen sitting with us at the same table. We never showed interest in each other's girlfriends. It just wasn't polite. Peter got up and he ran outside. They hugged and they kissed and they headed straight inside toward us. I froze. She had the eyes of an angel, light blue, brilliant and shining, behind a terrifically great smile. I really froze. He introduced me to Jenny. I never heard a word of it. I just took her hand gently so as not to give off any signal. I just took her hand so I wouldn't give off any signal that I was bumping around recklessly within my body and my mind, all the signals I was getting on the inside. She sat next to me. When I smelled her perfume, I almost fainted. She grazed my back with her hand, and I felt the electricity run straight through me. I was stunned into total silence. When we stood to pay the bill, Peter said, Hey, Tommy, come on home with us and we can tell stories, have a pizza, and get to know each other. I felt very nervous. Are you sure? Jenny was just arriving home and all that? Jenny grabbed my arm to lead me out the door and said, Let's go, cowboy. I was totally hooked on this delightful creature. Ah, shit. The next part of the story has been argued over as to its accuracy many, many times. The two of them agreed, and they always gang up on me. But here's my version. We talked all afternoon, and we had pizza delivered. I massaged Jenny's tired and aching feet. Peter said, Why don't you stay for the night? I slept on the floor in the living room after I gave them a martial arts treat I call Zazen. You've heard enough about it by now. Actually, it's just a guided relaxation type of hypnosis with no particular goal except one where you own wish to achieve what yourself. They held hands in the bed, and I talked quietly until I heard them sleeping, and I left. From then on, whenever both of them planned to do anything, or any time Jenny was free from the business, I was invited. We became tight social friends. Peter was called to go on tourist duty for a few weeks as a tour guide, and I was left behind friendless. After a few days alone, Jenny sent word from me and Vanita that she was lonely for Peter and she wanted to chat. I sent word back I had no car. So she came by to my Rossing flat in Vanita at lunchtime. We kissed cheeks politely. She sat, and when she crossed her legs, I went into a deep trance, like in a romance movie. We both stood in unison, walked toward each other, and embraced. That first kiss was exactly the one we all want to experience and we all want to remember. I lifted her gently and carried her into, thinking, man, what the hell am I doing? We both felt guilty afterwards and made a solemn pact not to discuss it again so as not to hurt Peter. What a cad I was. We agreed not to make a big deal out of it and agreed to avoid each other at all costs. That night I suffered from extreme guilt. I cheated on my best friend. Damn, what a jerk. It was stupid. I was immoral, I felt completely awful, and I could not wait to see her again. She stopped by my flat the very next day at noon, and the day after that, and the day after that, and the day after that. Oh my God, what are we doing? And the next is chapter 42.